evening,
Yes.
friends. I, on behalf of Beyond Law CLC, welcome you all to another engaging session. And as a student of law and lawyers, as well as judicial officers, we try to understand what are the issues which keep on cropping up regarding the trademarks, intellectual properties, and how the law has developed. In this regard, we thought that we should approach a person who has always been in the helm of such affairs, i.e., that is intellectual properties, trademarks, and himself being the chairman of the Intellectual Property Board. Today, when I was reading the newspaper, a big advertisement had come under the signatures of a sir regarding one of the cases in a large number of leading newspapers. I thought that what a coincidence having sir on the platform on the same day and the newspaper carrying the advertisement under probably
Which,
today carried out in the Hindustan Times. It was around half a page advertisement.
okay, I know, I'm not. Anyway, doesn't matter.
So that gives us a flip to the effect that on Beyond Law CLC, we intend to call speakers who can give their insights, and as they say, from darkness to light. They bring us with their vast knowledge and perspective of law. And as we all know that trademarks is an important perspective of law, not only for students, but also lawyers who are practicing on this aspect. So much so, even the businessmen, the people who get themselves registered under the trademarks, how and as to how the journey of this trademark has developed in the aspects of law is an issue which is quite relevant for all purposes, because we would find that large number of people keep on asking us what is the way forward and what is the law. The nitty-gritties and the subtle differences between trademark and intellectual properties is also an issue which everyone wants to learn. And to learn on a weekend and large number of people joining us on the platform, when I've seen that large number of platforms have also started webinars in the evening, to the effect that they have realized that since the unlocking has started, after the office hours, they can learn the nuances of the different subjects of law. With this endeavor, we had requested, as I said, Honorable Mr. Justice Manmohan Singh, and those who have been connected with Justice Manmohan Singh, we would like to inform that under his patronage, initial, what we say, baby steps of this Beyond Law CLC had started. He gave an insights on PMLA Act. That too was well received. And we were always getting the request that on Trademarks Act, we should request Honorable Mr. Justice Manmohan Singh, a former judge of the Delhi High Court. And he has been kind enough and large-hearted as always, who has conceded to our request. Thank you, sir. Without taking much time, I would request you to take over the show forward.
Thank you, Vikasji. Thank you. Thank you for everybody. And I'm very sorry for 10 minutes delay because I was busy in the matter. And there were so many counsel and I could not able to cut in between. So it took some time. Now, I have been asked to speak on trademark law. Actually, I will give you overall picture, number one. And number two, basically, this time, I want to give you basic thing about the trademark law. Then on the next webinar, if Mr. Vikas will arrange, then technical point also I will deal with.
We are all students. We all want to learn from the
point
like
is
you.
Because it is a technical law. So basically, basic thing somebody must be aware that because there are so many ambiguity in the minds of the student, in the minds of the courts, in the minds of the advocate. Even I've seen that even courts, even the honorable judges also, they are basically, they have different perception, because if it is a matter of subject matter of trademark, they are saying it's a patent law. Then it is a matter of copyright, they say trademark or patent, something like that. So basically distinction has to be drawn. As far as the IPR cases are concerned, I can only tell you that all the IPR cases are covered in 7 acts. Number one is Trade and Trademark Act. Number 2 is Copyright Act. Number 3 is Design Act. Number 4 is Patent Act. Number 5 is Geographical Indication Act. And number 6 is Plant and Variety. And one more act is to be added, which is not notified at this moment. Today, we are only concerned with the trademark matters. First of all, there is a big ambiguity of the what is the meaning of the trademark, how the trademark, one can say it is a trademark, whether it is a mark, whether it is a trademark. As I was mentioning you, that if the matter is of trademark, people are generally saying, भाई आपका patent registered है या नहीं है. Although Patent Act is totally a different act. Now, what is covered under the Trademark Act? In Trademark Act, basically, I am telling you, prior to 1940, there was no Trademark Act in India. Basically, all the matters of trademarks were being decided under the Common Law remedy, under the Specific Relief Act. Reliefs were granted, and we were following the law, UK Act 1905, we were following. So at that time, the perception of the courts were that if the trademark is same, business is the same, then it is a case of common law remedy. It is a case of piracy of the trademark. That was the perception in 1940 to 1950, up to 1957. Now, first time in 1958, full-fledged act came, Trade and Merchandise Mark Act 1958. There was a definition of the trademark. There was a definition of the mark. First mark, then mark becomes the trademark. So now that act continued up to 99. Up to 99. And 99, the definition of the mark and trademark was changed. And now the definition of the mark and trademark is, I will just read one line. Mark means, mark includes a device. Suppose some device is there, any device. We are seeing the device of some flower pot or device of any nature, that can be a mark. Then brand is, suppose the Bisleri mark is there or Coca-Cola mark is there. Hello, are you hearing me, Vikas? Vikas, you are hearing me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Perfect. Perfect.
No, basically, device I have mentioned. Brand is mark. Like Bisleri is the brand name, Coke is the brand name, Pepsi is the brand name. Then heading. Suppose some heading is there. Ye dil mange more. Some heading of the brand is there. That can also be a trademark. Label. Suppose some label mark is there. Suppose the soap is packed with some label. That can also be a trademark. Ticket. Some ticket is there. That is also some name. Suppose Vikas is there. The name of the Vikas is there. So Vikas is used for some merchandise goods. Vikas can also become the trademark. Some signatures. Suppose Vikas will sign something. His signature can be a trademark. Any word which is available in the dictionary, that can also be a trademark. Some letter. Suppose some letter is there. BCI is there. That can also become the trademark. Numeral, like 555 cigarette is also a trademark. Now, basically, first time in 99, these certain more things have become trademark, like shape of the goods. Suppose some Bisleri bottle is there, that is having a particular shape of the plastic bottle, that can also be a trademark. Some packaging, something is wrapped in the packaging, that can also become a trademark. Combination of colors, suppose the packaging in a different colors, that can also become a trademark, or any combination thereof. Any combination thereof, suppose mark is there, color scheme is there, so both can become a trademark. Now, as I am mentioning you, that earlier, prior to 1940, there was no act. First time 1940 act came, trademark act. And then at that time, till 60, courts were protecting the brand name, but there was some perception in the minds of the court. Judges were always seeing that if the trademark is same, like Gluvita, and somebody adopt Glucovita, suppose the Amrit Dhara, and somebody other side will adopt Lachman Dhara. They say, no, this is the different brand name, because Amrit Dhara and Lachman Dhara, totally different brand name. Amrit has a different meaning. Lachman has a different meaning. They were splitting the brand name. So they have in their perception that if marks must be identical, goods must be identical. Suppose somebody using for oil, the other side should also be used for oil. Otherwise, they say no protection will be given. But slowly after the Act of 1958, everything changed. So in that basically act, it is said that the trademark will not only protecting the same mark, but also deceptively similar mark. Suppose Ambal is there, A-M-B-A-L. Somebody use Andal, A-N-D-A-L. So that protection was also given. And the trademark was also adopted for allied and cognate goods. Suppose somebody is using for mixture and other party is using for pressure cooker. And both the goods are sold in the at the same shop. So court was thinking that basically these are allied and cognate goods. Both are sold in the same shop. Both are purchased by the same consumers are the same, so both are purchased by the same set of purchaser. Why not the trademark should be protected? So courts trying to protect the brand name for deceptively similar trademark also, or allied and cognate goods also. Now, as far as the deception is concerned, I'm telling you that mind has changed from 1940 onward. I'm telling you, when 1940, the concept was that actual deception, actual confusion must be there. Then when the 1958 Act came, that actual deception come to confusion and deception. They say confusion and deception is there. So it is a good case for common law remedy. Then basically further progress is made. They say actual deception may not be there, confusion may not be there, likelihood of confusion and deception. If somebody will say it may be confused, if he will use, it may not be confused. So that law is changed to likelihood of confusion. And then basically after 70, the law was there that the actual deception is not necessary. Actual deception is not necessary. Suppose somebody will see that it may cause a deception, that is good enough. Then no, the latest law is deception is not required at all. Suppose the trademark Mercedes-Benz car is there, somebody will use Mercedes car for matchbox or some candle. They say actual deception is not there, actual confusion is not there. One is for 1 crore, one is for 10 rupees or 5 rupees. So it is not necessary, because the point is confusion may not be necessary, but dilution of the brand name is there. Therefore, they say confusion is not required at all for the purpose of protecting the well-known trademark. So entire law is changed. Then 1980 onward, the courts were protecting the brand name, a foreign brand name, on the basis of goodwill and reputation, that is transborder reputation. If some party, like earlier the foreign brand name were not available in India, like Hero Honda, because hybrid brand name was there. Hero was at Ludhiana, Hero Cycle, and Honda was Japanese company. So slowly, basically, the government allowed hybrid brand name. Then many brand name, one foreign brand name, one Indian was started, and ultimately, end of the day, after 90, they say, okay, even the foreign brand name can be used in India. Earlier, the trademark was protected by the courts on the basis of transborder reputation. If somebody has a brand name outside India, in overseas countries, and somebody is aware, people were going in foreign countries, or the goods are coming in embassies. So they are aware about the brand name Whirlpool or other brand name Revlon, Charlie, Intimate Shampoo. So the courts in India started protecting foreign brand name also when the actual goods are not available in India. First time basically it was happened, and they were protecting, and there are a lot of judgment on this. Whirlpool judgment is the basic judgment. And then in Whirlpool case, 1995 AIR Delhi, and then they say that even suppose somebody has obtained the registration of Whirlpool in a clandestine manner in India. So they say, because they were taking the shelter, Indian companies were taking the shelter. Number one, this brand name is not being used in India. Number two, they say we are holding the registration. The court says, Supreme Court and High Court Division Bench says, doesn't matter if basically if the transborder reputation is there, if their actual user is not there, but people are aware about it, if the goods are available in embassy or some advertisement in the journals are there, journals are available in there, that is good enough. As far as the registration of the other party, infringing party is concerned, the court says that registration is unnecessarily. Under the common law remedy, the injunction can be passed against the unregistered trademark also. So court can pass the injunction against the registered proprietor. Then subsequently, two type of injunction, because injunction provision was already there, 39 Rule 1 and 2 and Order 26 Rule 9. The local commissioner can be appointed by the court, and at the time of passing the injunction order, the court can appoint the local commissioner to seize the goods in the market if somebody is counterfeiting the products. So two new things have come in 1990, where basically on the basis of the English judgment, Anton Pillen case and John Doe case, those are basically new concept have come to India. Number one, that the injunction can be passed against the party, and under the principle of Anton Pillen, the local commissioner can be appointed. He can go to the premises where the goods are, infringing goods are lying, counterfeiting goods are lying, duplicate goods are lying. The local commissioner will not see the goods of the other side at their shop, but also see the market. Suppose the goods are lying it at 10 shops. So one can go and seize the goods in 10 shops altogether. And that permission is also granted by the court while following the principle of Anton Pillen. And second principle then came, then football match was there, international, that is John Doe order. John Doe order was there that even the injunction can be passed against the unknown person. Suppose defendant are not the party, and suppose there are in bulk people are infringing the brand name. Suppose 50 people are using it, and person is not aware their addresses, or there is a hidden address. They are not selling the goods, or they are not doing in like I'm just giving the example. Earlier cassette were there. They were not mentioning the name and address of the party. So, but the cassettes were available in Lajpat Rai market. There are about 100 shops or 200 shops. They are selling it. You just go and purchase the cassette of a movie. So they will give you the cassette. But it was very difficult for the purpose of protection is concerned. So John Doe order came at that time that even the party is not there, their name is not there, address is not there. Only basically somebody will be appointed. He can go anywhere, even without identifying the address, and he can seize the goods. Although this direction is earlier in the criminal law, where the general search warrants are obtained from the court under section 93 of CRPC. But that following that provision, the things are also added in the civil action. So basically, these Anton Pillen order and John Doe orders were being passed in the matters. One basically I say, one more principle I can say, that when these orders are passed, John Doe order or Anton Pillen order, where the injunction is granted as well as the goods were seized, it is the experience of the courts are that more than 50% cases are settled, because what remains there, The point is, if somebody, we have caught the person red-handed, he is basically goods were seized, and he will come to the court and he can't deny it. Suppose he will say, yes, I am infringing it and I will infringe it. Court will not allow him because it is a counterfeiting thing. If he will say, I will not use it, doesn't matter, then court will pass a permanent injunction. The only bargain at that time is for damages and cost. That is the only thing. And I say, if you see the record of about 80 years of the Trademark Act, there are three types of cases filed before the court. Number one is counterfeiting cases. Number two is good cases, excellent cases, like I was giving the example, Gluvita and Glucovita, which are very close, and the judges are aware about the result, that ultimately the suit will be decreed and the permanent injunction will be passed against the. And third type of cases are borderline cases. Borderline cases where basically, suppose there is a fight between two parties, two corporate sector. The Tata is doing something. They are using the trademark Tisco, and Wipro is using the trademark Fisco, or Double and Bubble. Suppose Double soap Tata is manufacturing, and Bubble soap is manufactured by Wipro. So they will never surrender it because both are fighting. They are saying, one party says it is similar, one other party says it is not similar, and both are given their own justification. They are having the sale worth hundreds of crores. They are borderline cases, and that will be decided by the court. And as far as the first two categories are concerned, where the counterfeiting excellent cases, I say the evidence is not necessary at all, because what is the purpose of recording the evidence? Because on the face of it, it is for the court to decide whether the trademark is same or not. The counterfeiting case, whether basically when the defendant will come, he has hardly anything to say. He can only say, yes, I am infringing it, then injunction. If he says I am not infringing it, then injunction, because it is a counterfeiting product. So these type of cases, category number 1 and 2, evidence is not required. Even otherwise, suppose somebody insists that I will contest it, then under those circumstances, there are two provisions in the Code of Civil Procedure. One can straight away have the decree. One is Order 12 Rule 6 and other is Order 15. 12 Rule 6, basically, 12 Rule 6, earlier the law of 12 Rule 6 was that if somebody makes the admission in the written statement that, yes, whatever claim is there, I admit it, then basically decree can be passed. But now the law has been changed. Now they say even the defendant, even the party says, party is denying it, they are not admitting it. Still, basically, if court will feel that he is telling lie and ultimately he is telling lie, and decree should be passed, and court can pass the decree. And as far as Order 15 is concerned, if there is no issue, Mr. Vikas, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Mr. Vikas?
Yes, sir, it's audible. Actually, I keep myself mute so that
Okay.
even if somebody moves the chair, etc., in the office,
I was thinking
there's no
that
disturbance.
I said link is over.
In case there is any problem, I will apprise you.
Okay. Order 15 is when there is no issue between the parties, the suit can be decided there and then. So these two categories, no evidence is required. If somebody is insisting, application can be filed under Order 12 Rule 6, and whether he is admitting or not admitting infringement of trademark. So injunction can be passed, permanent injunction can be passed, and the suit can be decreed. Now, as far as infringement is concerned, what is the difference between infringement and passing off? Passing off is a common law remedy, and infringement is the remedy where the trademark is registered. If the trademark is not registered, common law remedy is still maintainable on the basis of the prior user and on the basis of the proprietorship of the mark in question. Both the action can be joined together. The infringement can be decreed, passing off can also be decreed. One action, suppose that one is failed to establish infringement of trademark, passing off still can be decreed. Suppose an infringement can be decreed if the title is shown. Here is my trademark. Passing off, suppose he is not able to establish any confusion and deception, passing off can be dismissed. So these are the two remedies: infringement of trademarks and passing off. They can be joined together. And as far as registration part is concerned, I say that the parties must go for registration because there is a benefit. There is a benefit of registration. Registration of trademark is just like registration of a sale deed of the property. You know, if there is a sale deed in favor of a party, there is a prima facie evidence that he is the owner of the property, and no doubt possession will also be decided by the court. The similar is the position of registration of the trademark. The prima facie evidence is there that he is the proprietor of the trademark because he is holding the registration. Injunction can be passed straight away, because unless the court declare that his registration is not valid, trademark will be treated as a valid trademark. So therefore, I always recommend to the parties to go for registration. Registration must be done, and it will help you. It will help you. So when you go for registration, there are 4 sections. There is a restriction for registration. Number 1 is section 9. Number 2 is 11. Number 2 is 12, and number 3 is section 18. So if somebody will go for registration, the trademark office will examine your application for all the 4 sections, whether basically it is a distinctive trademark, whether this trademark is likelihood of confusion with the earlier trademark, prior trademark or not, whether it is similar or deceptively similar, or whether the party is the proprietor of the trademark or not. If registration is granted, you will have the exclusive right. If the registration is not granted, that order of the trademark office can be challenged before the IPAB, and it can further taken to the writ petition before the High Court and thereafter in the Supreme Court. So this is a registration part is concerned. But as far as the common law remedy is concerned, if somebody is using it, that remedy is always available, common law remedy, but it depends upon the earlier user. If you are the earlier user, then it can be protected. If you are the proprietor, if you are the earlier user, if you have a little bit goodwill and reputation, that will be protected. If somebody is subsequent to you, the court will grant the injunction. Definitely. Now, the third category is, this is earlier I was saying about the civil action, infringement of trademark. The second part is for registration of the trademark. Now, in criminal remedy. Criminal remedy, whether you are having the trademark or you are not having the trademark, but if somebody is counterfeiting the products, if somebody is infringing your product, if somebody is duplicating your product, you can take criminal action also. One can file the complaint before the Chief Metropolitan Magistrate under section 157 of the CRPC, as well as read with section 200. The investigation order can be issued by the Chief Metropolitan Magistrate, and in the interim application, if you are seeking the specific general warrants under section 91, then the evidence will be recorded. If you are seeking general search warrant under section 93, general search warrant can be issued by the court. The police officer can go with you, although jurisdiction is also lies with the police also to take the action, and one can go to at the site and he can recover the goods, he can raid the party and recover the goods, and ultimately goods will be brought to the court, and after the evidence the good will be destroyed. Destruction order will be passed by the court, all the seized goods. But one thing is also very clear, that both the action can be taken simultaneously. If you wish to take the criminal action in a rare matter, but I recommend that the criminal action should be taken in a very good matter, not in a weak matter, because ultimately if in a weak matter the complaint will be dismissed, then basically the other party can file the suit for defamation against the original party. Better thing is, if you have a good case, you have 2 choices. One is civil action for infringement of trademark for injunction. The second is criminal action. Criminal action should be filed if you have the excellent case. And after filing the criminal action, you can file the civil action also, because the civil action is necessary because the criminal court does not have the jurisdiction of passing the injunction order, but criminal court will only grant you the general search warrant. You can go there, raid the party, but injunction order will not be there. Injunction order will be passed by the civil court. And what is the practice adopted by the parties are that sometimes they straight away go to the court and take the civil action. They take the injunction, they take the local commissioner, they seize the goods, and they will fight out for the injunction as well as for damages. Some of the parties, they are going to the criminal action. They want that some repercussion should be there in the market so that some halla gulla would be there, because suppose the infringers are more than 10 parties or 20 parties. So if you raid one party, they will have the lesson, no, it is a very well-known brand name, you should not infringe it. So criminal action, one basically threat is to be given to those parties who are infringing your brand name. And then basically simultaneously, then court can pass this injunction also after taking the civil action. So these are the two remedies can be taken simultaneously. Two can be done different courts. One is in criminal court, one is in the civil court, and ultimately benefit will come to you. In civil action, you can get the profits, you can get the damages, you can get the destruction of goods also, and you can attach the properties also. In criminal action, only basically seizing of the goods will be there. If you are able to establish your case after the evidence, the person can be sent behind the bar. That provision is there, particular whether it is a food product or it is a general product, different imprisonment is there. One can, if one wants to take the action against a party, that he should also go behind the bar, it can be taken. Now, basically under the new law, custom law also, basically, suppose some overseas countries, somebody is exporting the goods into any part of India. Earlier, this law was not there. Now, due to modernized position, this law has also come. One can go to the custom office and he can meet the custom officer. One can file a complaint and say that these goods are coming from such and such. These goods are coming from China, or these goods are coming from Thailand or Hong Kong, and these goods may be seized by the custom office. But he has to establish the right before the custom officer. He will say that this is my registered trademark, this is my goodwill, this is my reputation. They will block the consignment at the airport itself. If they will open it, they will compare it, the goods, and ultimately, but condition is there that within the prescribed period of time under the section of the Trademark Act, you have to obtain the injunction order from the court, restraining them not to remove the goods. If the goods are removed, goods may be deposited to the court or with the plaintiff, so that basically goods may be, because otherwise the goods will be lying in custom for years. So damages would be there. If the other party will not pay, then you have to pay. So therefore, they have given the particular time that provision is there. Within 30 days, you have to take the injunction from the court and remove the goods if you are the owner of the trademark. And therefore, it is a very good remedy that if I am aware that certain goods are coming from China, and I say that the China people ultimately, it will go to the Indian company, and ultimately it is better that we should stop the goods at the airport itself. It can be done if you are able to establish the case before the custom officer. But immediately after seizing the goods, one should go to the civil court and obtain the injunction as well as the seizure of the goods, so that the seizure of the goods either be removed at your place or some third party place, so that it can be either settled or it can be fighted out before the court. Lastly, I say, if you see all these 7 acts, and all the 7 acts are read in meaningful manner, the purpose is to protect the rights of the rightful person. Every act says, whether it is a copyright act, whether it is a patent act, whether it is a trademark act, design act, geographical act, plant and variety, that the protection must be given to the original party, which is a genuine party, which is a rightful property, against the infringer. So if you see all the things, basically the scheme of all the act remains the same. One scheme is that piracy should not be given, counterfeiting should not be allowed, the duplicate medicine should not be allowed under the Patent Act. If all the acts say the same thing, that the protection must be given to the rightful person. And one para I will read, because it is a Lord Diplock judgment is there. Their trademark judgment is there. That is a very well-known para, which is reported in AIR 1985, Delhi, page number 210, where the expression is that competition must remain free. It is true that this is the lifeblood of free enterprises system, yet it is essential that trading must not only be honest, but must not even unintentionally be unfair. So the same, although it is a very landmark judgment, but purpose remains the same. Even basically unintentionally, infringement should not be there. If the person will come to know that I am infringing the right, it is better that he should resolve immediately. And at present, I am telling you, at present, because the Indian law has developed to such an extent, which is read in all over the world, our judgments are being read. It has extended to such an extent that even the infringing parties are not fighting in the court, because only the complex cases are being fight in the court. Because in general cases where the law is settled, if you file a case, they will immediately come and resolve the thing, because they are aware that the law is quite settled. Suppose the trademark is Flavidon, somebody will use Travidon. If you take the action or any notice is given, if you'll go to the 10 advocates, they will say, no, this is similar. This is covered by the 1963 Amrit Dhara, Lakshman Dhara. Don't fight it unnecessarily. You will lose the business. So he will surrender it. So it is better. We are proud to be good Indian, because the point is our law is so simple and it is quite settled as per the statute. And our judgments are landmark judgment. Judgments come first, law is changed later on. In other countries, law will come first and then the judgment will come. But here in India, here all the law have come first, then the law is changed in parliament. So these are the things under the basic thing under the trademark law. And I say that if next webinar, if Vikas will arrange, then basically on technical issue and legal issue, we will discuss. And I will tell you 30 judgment of the Supreme Court and High Court, which are the landmark judgment. And I will give you the citation also, so that basically if you read 30 judgments, then you can be the master of the trademark law. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The fact that you have immense knowledge is buttressed from the fact that Justice Muralidhar had joined, though he had to leave for just a minute ago.
Oh, Justice
Muralidhar had joined with us, and I will just share his message.
Yes.
He says, I will have to leave. Please give my regards to Justice Manmohan Singh.
Thank you.
And he has also posted that you have brought one of the best speakers on the trademarks. And so the subtle differences between the civil law, criminal law. Pardon, sir?
Whenever you meet, you pay my regard to Justice Muralidhar.
Definitely, sir.
Excellent judge.
So that's true. It goes without saying. The subtle differences between the different 7 acts and how to proceed. And I was also thinking, in fact, I had also defended, I was for the complainant in one of the cases where we took the seizure procedure, etc. That was against 2 ride-share companies. And then I have realized that, as you said, that it's very difficult to continue with that. It's right. Since on this group, as such, we have not received the messages, but on Facebook, yes. So what is the difference between an artistic work under Copyright Act and a trademark, assuming both are unregistered? How does one differentiate between the two? There may be some overlappings between the same. Please illustrate the same with examples. How do I figure out it is a case of infringement of an artistic work of copyright or a trademark infringement?
I will just tell you. I just tell you. as far as the combination of colors are concerned, this has been added in the definition in 1999 Act. As copyright is concerned, Section 2C of the Copyright Act says artistic work. Artistic work, the definition is there, artistic work. One can go to the definition of the artistic work. And for registration part is concerned, and Copyright Act is a very unique act where the copyright need not be registered for the purpose of taking the action for infringement of copyright. But in the Trademark Act, trademark must be registered if it is a case of infringement of trademark. So if you design something, if you have some artistic thing just now, suppose I do some artistic work just now, I will just tell you. Suppose this is I have just basically do some artwork. I have just mentioned, and I have just basically I have done some artwork. So this is artistic work. I need not go for registration. I can straight away file the suit for infringement of copyright. But in Trademark Act, this definition has been added. No doubt there is a overlapping, but definition is different than the Copyright Act. And then here basically, if you don't have the registration of combination of colors, then only the common law remedy is available, not for infringement of copyright, infringement of trademark. If you are having the color combination registered, that only basically under those circumstances infringement of trademark will be available. Otherwise, common law remedy.
So this is by R. Bhalla. I presume it should be Justice Bhalla. It says.
Yes. This I have read it. I'm telling you, if you go for registration, there are three categories. I have read the question. I have to give the answer of that, Mr. Vikas.
Yes, sir. Can you comment on the new provision of the trademark, where the trademark can go before the court to declare the brand as well as known trademark?
Yes, I will just tell you.
Yes, sir.
The one question displayed, should I give the answer of that or should I give the answer of your question?
So first, let's take that question, then we will take the second question.
That basically that question asks what are the descriptive brand name, what are the suggestive brand name, and what are the distinctive trademark. I'm telling you these three expression are applicable when you file the application for registration of the trademark. When basically registration of the trademarks are filed, there is a provision of Section 9. Section 9 is a provision. The registrar of trademark will examine your trademark while reading the Section 9 of the Act. There are basically three type of condition in the Trademark Act. One mark is it is a distinctive trademark, the general principle. Then I will come. Distinctive trademark. One is not distinctive, but capable of distinguish. And third trademark is not distinctive and not capable of distinguish. So these are the three category of brand name which are filed before the trademark office, which are hit by Section 9. As far as distinctive trademark is concerned, suppose I just invent one brand name. Suppose I just invent one word, JIF, JIFF. So it is a distinctive brand name because I have just invented, and straight away, suppose somebody will apply, it will get registered. The second trademark, the second category is the trademark is not distinctive, but capable of distinguish. This is the suggestive brand name. Suppose the trademark is Uncle Chips or some Usha brand or some Vikas fabric is there. Because Vikas is the name, Usha is also the name, and Uncle Chips is not distinctive but capable of distinguish. So at that time, basically one has to give the reply to the registrar of trademark how this trademark is distinctive. One can file the evidence to say that basically I have been using it for the last number of years. It is a suggestive trademark. It may not be distinctive at that time when I adopted it, but now after the 2-3 years it is become distinctive trademark. It is a suggestive brand name. It is an arbitrary mark. Therefore, it should be registered. It should be accepted. It will be accepted. Somebody has to show the distinctiveness. One has to satisfy it. And the third category is descriptive brand name. Descriptive brand name will come in category number 3, where the trademark was not distinctive and not capable of distinguish. Descriptive means suppose the mark is having the direct reference to the character and quality of the goods. I will just tell you. Suppose somebody is dealing in milk and he basically use the mark Milka or milk brand. So it has a direct reference to the character and quality of the goods. So therefore, it will come in category number 3 and it may not be registered. The application may not be accepted. Another example is suppose somebody says somebody use the mark truck brand, TRUCK, and he is using in vehicle. So even that basically has a direct reference to the quality of the goods. And other brand name is like super. Everybody can say that my thing is very super, like perfect, like best. Everybody can say my goods are very best. This is the best thing. This is a super thing. So this monopoly cannot be given to that party. Therefore, these type of cases are coming in category number 3, that the trademark are not distinctive nor capable of distinguish. So these are the thing. And as far as the second part is concerned, suggestive brand name and arbitrary brand name, you have to tell the trademark office that it is a distinctive trademark by virtue of the user, by virtue of the name. And first category is invented word. You invent something today just now. You can go there, you say, I have invented it. It's not a dictionary meaning. It is not a surname. It is not a name. It is not a descriptive name. I have done it like JIF, JIFF. So basically it has no meaning. So it is my dream. So trademark office will immediately accept the application without evidence. They will not put any question at all. These are the 3 type of mark. Next question. Vikas?
Yes, sir. I'm taking the question.
What is the next question?
This is by Chandrakant. So this is by Chandrakant Dwani. Sir, how can you see nowadays big corporates registering their marks in all classes, even though they are not using mark in that class, and trying to create monopoly and thus affecting the small business?
Yes, actually they are basically, you are right, absolutely. It has been noticed that the big companies are registering the mark in all the category of goods because they think at that time they may diversify the business, because today they are in some particular business and they may extend the business in future. So they can file the application for registration in all the classes. The second fear is that let me have the registration of all the classes. If somebody may not cause confusion and deception, somebody may copy my brand name. It is a distinctive brand name. Why he should copy for different goods even? Therefore, basically, in order to take the protection, why not have the registration of different classes also? But the best thing, there is an answer also, that if somebody will see that he's basically he's blocking the registered, he's blocking the register of the trademark, one can file the rectification for removal of the trademark under section 47, where basically application can be filed in the trademark office or before the IPAB that this trademark, he has blocked it in all the classes, and but he has not used it and he has no intention to use it. That trademark can be rectified. All the trademark can be rectified if the company has not used in a particular period of time. The detail of the same are mentioned in section 47 of the Trademark Act.
This is by Vinny Singh. can a defense be taken in infringement proceedings that trademark should have been registered in the first place on grounds mentioned in section relating to registration? What is the difference between descriptive mark, generic, and suggestive marks? Can you discuss a little about strength of trademarks and its impact on the IP litigation?
I say in litigation, I'm telling you, the earlier law was that if the trademark is registered, unless it is rectified, it should not be touched by the court. Court cannot question it. Court cannot say whether it is a descriptive brand name, it is a suggestive brand name, it should not have been registered. But since basically law has been changed, section 30 has been added, section 33 and 34 has been added, that exception is always there. But now it is one of the defense is there that this trademark ought not to have been registered. But normally in trademark cases, once the trademark is registered, the court will also take the opinion that prima facie it is a valid brand name, unless the court will feel that this trademark is wrongly registered on the face of the record. Otherwise the defense of descriptiveness cannot be challenged in the action for infringement of trademark.
So this is by Ali. If I have a registered trademark and I've outsourced the manufacturing of that product to a different company, and they had filed for registration of the patent of that product, will I be able to stop them from registering the patent? What is your take on that?
Yes. Actually, definitely. I say if you are holding the patent, and therefore now there is a confusion. It's a trademark or patent. If it is a trademark, then the different law will apply. If it is a patent, I will give you the answer of both. If somebody is having the trademark registered or pending application, and he is giving the permission to the party, third party, to manufacture the goods or to fabricate the goods, and dishonestly he applies the trademark in his name, it cannot be allowed. If somebody will do it, action for breach of trust can be filed, action for passing off can be filed, injunction can be filed before the court, and injunction will be granted. It is a total case of dishonesty because the other party cannot appropriate the brand name because he has taken the trademark for you to use it. As far as the patent is concerned, if the patent is registered and some license is given to the third party, and third party apply for that, that is not possible. Then basically infringement suit can be filed and injunction can be obtained because he is your licensee. Licensee has no right at all. But one point is there that if the party is not holding the patent and he is giving the something to the third party to use some technology, and he is filing the application before the patent office, one can oppose it. One can say that he is not the owner of the patent only on this ground that this basically technology, this invention is mine, and he has applied for registration of a patent in breach of trust. That application can be rejected. But injunction can be passed by civil court also.
So when can computer programs be copyrighted and patented? Will any provisions of the trademark be applicable on computer programs? This is by Lal Tejwani.
I say as far as the trademark is concerned, it is always protected for computer program or other things. Suppose somebody will use it under the law of passing off. In the copyright also, under the literary work, the computer program can be protected under the Copyright Act. It can be if somebody will infringe the same in material form, then basically literary work can be restrained against the other party. But one has to establish before the court that you are the owner and author of the work. Either basically it is artistic work, whether it is a literary work, computer program can be protected under the Passing Off Act. As far as the patent is concerned, that is a very big debate because there is a dilemma in that. I have given very recent judgment that computer program can be protected under the patent also, but there is a condition that the patent must be registered. Patent must be registered. Without registration of the patent, the right cannot be protected. Any program of computer cannot be protected even for any goods. Whether it is a product, whether it is a process cannot be protected unless the patent is registered by the patent office. Patent is granted.
This is by Benny Singh. Can you discuss the concept of latest manifestation? Is it audible?
No.
So is it audible now?
Yes, yes. Tell Vikas.
It says, yes, sir. It says, Benny Singh, can you explain the concept of manifestation of doctrine of passing off?
Manifesto of?
Manifestation of doctrine of passing off.
Yes, yes. Yes,
Doctrine
yes,
of-
yes. Yes, I'm telling you.
Yes, sir.
I'm telling you, the earlier law in 1940, the passing of law was that if somebody will pick up the basket and put the basket on his head, and he says that my goods are coming from Tata, and actually those are not coming for Tata. So that was passing off in 1940, 50 or other thing. Then basically the main purpose is that nobody can carry on business. It was changed. Language was changed of passing off. Nobody can do his business. Nobody carrying on business as the business of the other party. But in passing of action, one has to establish before the court. First thing is that he must be the proprietor of the trademark. Number two, that he has to establish that he is the prior user between the two parties. Suppose in passing of action, a party appropriate the brand name of somebody else. Suppose trademark Capital is already there in the market for some goods, some computer, and B party filed a suit against C party for passing off. And C party is later than B. B says that I'm using the trademark Capital 2019 and he is using in 2020. If C party is able to establish that he is not the proprietor, he is not the owner of the brand name, there is a party which is there for the last 10 years. He is there for the 2010. And actually, B party has appropriated the mark of the other party. It means he is not the proprietor. He has appropriated the brand name of the third party. Therefore, passing off will not lie. In passing off, one has to establish that he is the proprietor of the trademark. He cannot be basically say that he cannot be allowed to say that he has copied somebody else and he can file the suit against somebody else and say between two I am the owner. He has to establish that he is the owner. Then basically he has to establish that he is the earlier user. And number three, he says I am basically having some goodwill and reputation of this brand name. Passing off is established before the court.
When Kanath Singh, when parties like YouTube are involved, to what extent can one stretch the copyright in case of musical covers? Which one may post online?
Please tell me again because I have not been able to understand. Because
Sir, Kanath Singh, when parties like YouTube are involved, to what extent one can stretch copyright in case of musical covers? Which one may post online?
That's all. The point is, if somebody will post music, something in YouTube, and if other party will come to know that this is a music of mine, he has done it. So they can basically take the action against that party, and they can also make the request to the YouTube to delete the same. And in the civil court, they can take the injunction against that party, but one has to establish before the court that he is the original owner of the musical work. Then basically it will be done, because YouTube can be requested that this may be deleted. They will only delete it if the court order would be there, because there are judgment. Basically, the order has been passed. between the two private parties, and court has declared that party B has infringed the music of the party A, and therefore his music may be deleted by YouTube. When the order is served to the YouTube, they will delete it definitely.
The last two questions we will be taking. This is by Abhishek Sharma. It has been noticed that brands registered outside India are registering themselves in India and challenging the local manufacturing products of local marketers in small cities. Could you shed some light on the internationally registered trademarks being used in India?
Tell me again, please. Tell me once.
It has been noticed that the brands registered outside India are registering themselves in India and challenging the local manufacturing products of local marketers in small cities. Could you just shed some light on internationally registered trademarks being used in India?
There are there are two types of brand name, international brand name. One is basically brand name which has some existence in India. One is basically trademark has never been used, international brand name has not been used at all in India, and the party has no intention to use it. They only basically have the registration in India just to pocket the registration, and they want to protect it. If they will come to the court or some small city, if they will go there, if they are able to show that they have some goodwill and reputation, they have some user directly or indirectly, if they have user in embassy, if they have advertised the trademark in some magazine which are available in India, then that user will be considered whether the actual use is there or not there, it can be protected. But if suppose in one country the trademark is there, international brand name, they go for registration in India also, but they have not used at all, and there is no intention in future also. They have not done it, they are not doing it, and they will not do it. Then basically foreign brand name cannot be protected in India against the party who is already using it.
It's just like what people do on websites also, that they register their name for a website, and so that people can buy from that or they can utilize that service.
Because that is a stolen of the things, domain name. Yes. Domain name basically there is a caucus. There are so many parties who are famous for that. They are like, I decided one matter. Somebody got domain name registered Arun Jaitley. And basically the intention is to get some money. The intention is some money from the pocket, like Cyrus Mistry. Somebody got the trademark Cyrus Mistry, or somebody have the trademark Tata domain name registered, because they are not having the registration. When they will go to the association, they will say, no, it is already given to party A, and we come to know that the party is sitting in somewhere in Russia, he's sitting in Russia. And he says, why basically you have used the word Tata? Why you have used the word Mistry? Why you have used the word Arun Jaitley? He says, no, I have got it registered, and cancellation process is very difficult. So naturally he will say, give me $10,000 or $20,000. I will assign the domain name or whatever basically in your name. So this is only sometime for the purpose of blackmailing. If I say, if somebody will take the action before the court against that party, if the civil action is taken and injunction is obtained against that party, then basically that order can be shown to the authority, registering authority, which is in US. So they will remove it. Like in Arun Jaitley matter, I did pass the order while sitting as a sitting judge of the High Court.
This is where Ali. It says, can we stop a person from exporting goods by using a trademark or without using the trademark? But that product is marketed with my trademark in other country.
Yes, basically, point is exporting of goods. Exporting of goods can be done whether your trademark is registered or unregistered. And if somebody is exporting the goods from India, but is infringing the trademark either of the overseas countries or Indian company, that export itself is the infringement of trademark. I will just give the example. Suppose the Tata has a trademark Tisco for iron, steel iron. And if some second party X, they are not using the trademark Tisco for steel iron in India, but they are selling the goods to Australia and they are exporting it. And Tata people will come to know that they are exporting it. He cannot say that since I am not using in India, therefore infringement of trademark does not arise because these goods are meant for other countries. You should go to that country and file the action against me. No, the law has been changed. No, Section 55 is there. Section 55, 56. They say even exporting of the goods without using to local country is also infringement of trademark.
Yes. Only one, because it's a common question which comes in the mind of any common man. What are the subtle differences between trademark, copyright, and intellectual property? And then we will call for the day.
I mentioned to you that basically trademark means mark, given you the definition, any signature, any word, any shape of the goods, color combination, ticket, signature. These are the brand name. These are covered under the Trade and Merchandise Mark Act. As far as copyright is concerned, artistic work, literary work, cinematography work, musical work, all these are covered under the Copyright Act. All the books, literary work, books are written, literary work is there. Suppose some royalty is involved by the author, it can be granted under the Copyright Act. As far as Design Act is concerned, that is a shape and configuration of the article. Suppose here is I've got a glass, he has a particular shape of the goods. So that will cover under the Design Act. If somebody is having some patent, some invention, or some improvement in the product or in the process, which is registered one, then basically it can be protected under the law of Patent Act, under the Patent Act. Patent Act, Copyright Act, or Design Act has nothing to do with the Trademark Act. Copyright has nothing to do with the Trademark Act. These are all different acts. Geographical indication is also there because suppose some association is there like Rajasthan, Bikaner, Bhujiawala, something like that, or some other association is there, popular brand name or popular thing, chappal, Mysore chappal or something like that, sari, other sari. So that can be protected under this geographical indication. As far as plant and varieties are concerned, suppose some seeds are there in a particular field, those can be protected under the Plant and Variety Act. So these are the 6 acts at this moment.
One is also that traditional.
But under the Patent Act and under the Design Act, the protection can only be given if the Design Act, under the Design Act and the Patent Acts are registered. Under common law remedy is not available under the law of Design Act as well as of the Patent Act.
Thank you, sir. Tomorrow, friends, do stay connected with us. Tomorrow, we will be having a session on police report under section 173 CRPC, powers and functions of the magistrate. We would be having the keynote speaker, Justice K.N. Phanendran, former judge of the Karnataka High Court. As we have been saying that we connect with the persons who are considered to be the leading benchmarks for the purposes of knowledge. And today, like when we heard Justice Manmohan Singh, we had heard a lot about him, but the way he distinguished and explained the subtle differences between all these acts and what are the remedies for a common man or a lawyer to understand. We are all so grateful to him for sparing the time, despite he was quite engaged with one of his personal event, yet he gave time and gave the insights. We are so thankful to him.
Thank you.
After this webinar, we will seek Sir's time and indulgence when he gives the technical know-hows and the judgments. We would be too enriched by your insights, sir. And so thank you, my friends.
Thank you so much.
On the Facebook as well as on this platform, and subsequently on our channel of Beyond Law CLC. Thank you to everyone. Stay safe, Stay connected. Thank you once again to everyone.
Thank
Namaskar.
you. Thank you so much. Thank you. God bless everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Thank you.